Hey, well, we're putting some miles in. We're just visiting with you down in Georgia, really talking about how we can utilize PGRs and nutritionals for plant health. And now I'm coming to you from Southern Illinois with two guys I have a lot of respect for. And when you put us all together, we have just a little bit of experience in the ag industry as well. I'm not going to ask ages, but we could probably come up with a few years between us. But I've got Scott Bingman, who's a sales agronomist with Ag Explorer, and then I have Barry Beaupre with Syngenta. So Scott, tell me a little bit about where we are and just kind of the history of agriculture right here.
Sure. We're in Elkville, Illinois, which is over by DuQuoin. We're at a location, Funk Farms in Elkville. Just a little bit, mainly corn, beans in this area, some wheat, quite a bit of wheat. So yeah, we've had our challenges this year. So John, I'm glad you and Barry could come and visit with us on this, talking about the rain, talking about some PGRs, talking about some stress, and a little bit of everything in Southern Illinois. So appreciate you guys coming down to help.
Definitely. And Scott, you and Barry have a pretty long history together. So why don't you introduce Barry to us and kind of tell us about the history you guys have?
Sure. Barry and I have worked together for a long time. Barry's a Syngenta rep in this area. Been down here a long time, Barry. About how long have you been down here?
I've been down here since 1993, so when I started down here.
So Barry and I have seen a lot. We've seen a lot. Mother Nature has came in, and we've seen a lot throughout the years. Nothing's been constant. So Barry, I'm glad to work with you.
Yep, same here, Scott.
Scott, you said a key word. I think let's jump off here. Nothing's been constant. So Barry, talk to me a little bit about what does planting season look like down here this year, and what are some challenges we have already had and some challenges you see going forward this year?
Okay, John. Well, we started out the end of March, first week of April. We had some time that we could run and plant. Some guys got in, got some things planted. This particular farm had about 500 acres of corn in the ground, and then we started getting rain at that first mid part of April, and it really has kept growers out of the field since until about 2 weeks ago. So I've got, from a crop standpoint, I've got some beans and some corns across my geography that got in the field and are at some corns at the V5, V6 growth stage right now. Beans are approaching second, third trifoliate, and then we've got stuff that's just emerging.
So interesting the spread, but as you start to think about that and as you talk about it, some things come to mind that we really want to focus on. So first of all is how are we going to manage crops when we're spread out over from that V5, V6 time frame in corn till we're just kind of spiking out of the ground, and we got soybeans that are just getting dropped in, and we got soybeans at the third trifoliate. What does that look like in terms of nutrient management and then disease management?
Okay, I think, and I treat the two crops differently because I think soybeans, for example, pretty much everybody treats their beans. So the early season diseases and things like that are taken care of. The one thing that I like to see in that V2 to V4, V5 growth stage in beans is some type of a nutrient management plan, as well as something that's going to spur root growth in that soybean plant.
Definitely.
And really it's about getting those beans, especially the early planted beans. A lot of times we struggle getting growth out of those right away in that nasty April, mid-May weather where we don't have good temps.
Definitely.
We've got to spur that plant on. We haven't actually seen very good results from putting a fungicide on at that time. I would not recommend a grower would put fungicides on his beans in that early to mid vegetative growth standpoint. It's more about getting root production, getting good root systems established, and about getting that plant and helping that plant grow up.
Awesome. So let's jump back and let's talk about that nutrient management, right? Because we understand managing nutrients, utilizing maybe some PGRs to enhance that growth is really important early on. So around this area, things that come to my mind, obviously, when we think about soybeans and really all plants in general, definitely sulfur, right? Yep. We know that we're dealing with sulfur deficiencies. We know that potassium plays a key role. We know that boron plays a key role within that. What are you seeing in terms of applications that are working well?
I think anytime we can get any type of a plant growth regulator in that situation to help that soybean root system establish itself, to get to the nutrients that are in the soil quicker. And then I think anytime we can put anything over the top that's going to kind of give that plant a boost to get it up and get it growing quicker.
Yep. Definitely. So the basic agronomics, right? You and
Yep.
I were standing in the shop over there talking, what are we going to discuss? And it all boils down to basic agronomics, right? We
Yep.
have to feed the plant if we want it to do something.
Yep.
So let's walk us through the season just a little bit more then. So let's get us into that maybe later vegetative stage, maybe even moving into early reproductive if we want to on those soybeans. What does disease management look like as we move forward? What are you kind of seeing?
So on soybeans, especially, if we're going to stay focused on soybeans,
Yep.
a lot of times the biggest thing I can tell growers is we have been historically spraying our beans too late. We go out there, we think we got to hit it perfect at R3 growth stage. We kind of mess around for a week, or we don't get stuff planned out on a timely basis. All of a sudden, we're into that R4 application timing. And with our new class of fungicides that are going to last longer and be more effective, we really want growers to start looking at that R2 application, because we're looking at frog eye leaf spot is one of the big ones that we deal with down here. And that's the main one we're going by, but really it's about stress management in that soybeans life
Yeah,
cycle.
definitely. So I want to jump on two things. I love conversations like this.
Yep.
I could do this all day long. So you talk timing, right? You talk that we need to move it up, right? I'm of that time frame. We always talked about that R3 time frame, used to kind of be the traditional. I want to jump into a little bit of the science though of these fungicides, both from the disease management, and then let's move into stress mitigation if that's all right.
Yep.
So you said it's lasting longer. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm scared to say most of the names of what is actually in a fungicide in front of anyone. And I think that as an industry, that scares us a little bit.
Yep.
So walk me through, just in general, why do our fungicides work better now? Why are we getting a longer protection period? And because that's gonna influence our management.
Yeah, well, it's a new class of fungicides that we've come out with, an SDHI technology is what we call it. Basically, it's a brand new class of fungicides. Adepidin is one of the active ingredients that we have in the Miravis brands. You'll hear Miravis a lot in corn, soybeans, and wheat. And it's just going to last longer. It's going to make that plant cleaner and greener. From a technical standpoint, it regulates the plant's ability to utilize moisture during the growing season in tough conditions.
Yep.
It will also help manage diseases at the same point in time.
Awesome.
And the residual on it is going to be about 2x what our normal
really?
stuff would have been.
So I love that now, because now it lets us also start talking about what else can we put on with it. Because now that you're encouraging people to move forward more to that R2 time frame in soybeans, there's a lot that's going on in soybeans at R2, right? We're still setting flower. We're getting ready to start setting pods, right? A lot of times we think, man, that's one of the most stressful times in a soybean's life. So when we think about that stress and we think about that we're protecting it from disease, it also brings to mind for me, how are we going to help to mitigate that stress utilizing PGRs and also put some nutritionals in there? So I like to think about kind of the new class of PGRs, right? We all grew up, we had those 5 traditionals.
Yep.
We have a newer kind of class called GABA, right? This big word, gamma aminobutyric acid. Doesn't really matter what the big name is, it's GABA. And GABA really, I think, works well with fungicides because it's about mitigating stress, it's about keeping the plant green, and it's about helping it grow. So when we think about something like a Miravis, can we tank mix it well? Does it mix well with other things? Does it play well?
Yeah, it mixes extremely well with any of the nutritionals and with any of the PGR type products.
So Scott, specific down in this area, right? As we're kind of getting from Georgia up to Illinois, we're gonna get some up in Iowa and Minnesota as well. What have you seen work well in terms of tank mixing around that R2 time frame?
We've got a product called Onward Max that we utilize. It's a low use rate. We help with, especially on beans, with pods not aborting.
Yep.
We help with pod fill.
Yep.
We help with test weight. There's multiple things that late season PGR that we can add as a simple tank mix.
Definitely, and it's simple, it works well, and as I hear us all talk, it's all working together, right? We use that word synergy,
Yep.
but it just means 1 + 1 = 3 by the time we get to the end of the day. So walk me through a little bit of corn then. I know there's a lot of discussion the last couple years. Do I want to be making a 1-pass fungicide? Do I want to be making a 2-pass fungicide? If I'm making 2 passes, do I use a half rate? Do I use a full rate? What's my timing? Barry, kind of what are your thoughts specific to this area and then just around the United States in general?
Okay, I would say in our neck of the woods, in our geography down here, we have a lot more humidity than they do. My home farm is up in Kankakee, Illinois, northern Illinois, and then I've got some buddies that farm up in Wisconsin and the Dakotas. It's a big difference from a humidity standpoint when they come down to visit in mid-July. So we have a lot more disease pressure. Our soil types can get a little droughty at times, a little bit quicker than what they do. We just don't have the water holding capacity. So our corn crop is going to go through more stresses down here than what they will up north.
Definitely.
That's a scientific fact.
Yep.
So where we have done on-farm trials, and this isn't our trials, but on-farm trials, a 2-pass fungicide system works extremely well.
Okay.
And especially with the amount of tar spot.
Yeah.
I don't want to get tar spot tunnel vision, but tar spot has been more of an issue down here than what we originally thought it would. We thought the heat would kind of nip it in the bud and we wouldn't have an issue,
Yep.
but it's proven that wrong and incorrect. So it's something that we've got to manage or look out for and make sure we pay attention to. But it's really, when I look at my high yield growers and my fungicide passes, it's going to be a 2-shot fungicide, and I want full rates the whole time.
Okay.
I do not want a half rate, because actually, when you look at it, diseases can develop resistance to fungicides faster than weeds can.
Wow. That's interesting to know.
Yeah, that's a proven fact. That's why in the vegetable market, you'll see them talk about rotating your fungicides every single time, rotating to different AIs.
That's interesting. So let's kind of talk about handling disease though, because I think a lot of times we want to wait to handle a disease till we walk out and we see tar spot. You know, I mean, we were in some fields last year, it looks like you took black spray paint, you know what I mean, on those. Why do we need to make sure we're getting those fungicides out in front of that disease? Why can't John wait until I see tar spot and then call Barry? It's like, hey, I've got tar spot, I've got a problem, what should I put on it?
Right. So there's a latent period on any disease, whether that's southern rust, whether it's gray leaf spot, northern corn leaf blight, tar spot. All of them have a period of infection in the plant. Then you start to get symptoms anywhere from 14 to 21 days later. And we'll talk about, we as reps talk about the curative properties of our fungicides.
Yep.
Well, it's the fact that when you see it, we can't cure it at that point in time.
Yep.
So we can cure it with the curative products as long as it's not visibly seen by the naked eye. So we've got to hit it within that 14-day period before the disease actually develops pustules on the outside of the plant, on the leaf surface.
Definitely, because once it's there, we
It's
have
there.
it in there, right? And it's a struggle from that point on.
Yeah, especially with tar spot and southern rust. Those are the two that, and really for our area, southern rust still is my main concern.
Yep.
Blowing in from down south.
Definitely. So let's talk timing then. When do we want to be timing these fungicide passes? So maybe specifically even that second one, right? We talked that we want to make sure we're running full rates. What does that timing look like in corn in this area?
So on my first passes, anywhere from that V5 to V8 timing, depending upon what you're going after, I want my fungicide on then, and only because you're going to get water use efficiency out of the new class of fungicides, stress mitigation. You're going to regulate the stomates, which regulate the amount of water that's transpired out of the plant.
Yep.
It's also going to regulate and decrease ethylene production, which is what causes the plant to go back.
So Barry, you brought up a key word, kind of a hot topic word, ethylene production, right? One thing with ethylene production is it just tells the plant it's time to shut down. It's kind of time to slow down. And when we think about what drives yield, it doesn't matter if we're talking corn, soybeans, wheat, specialty crops. We can boil it down to two things: how much photosynthesis the plant does, and then how long grain fill happens. So let's start with, how do we enhance photosynthesis? And I think it goes back to two things you had there: how we're going to manage disease early, that V5, V6 time frame, but also how we're going to mitigate that stress early on as well.
Yeah, I mean, the whole focus is to keep that plant cleaner and greener longer, because that's your production facility. You want your production facility running at 100% capacity. That's the goal, is to keep that plant greener longer.
Yep.
And that's what the fungicides do. The new class of fungicides, like a Triva Pro in corn, or a Neo in corn, and like a Mirabis Top in beans.
Yep, definitely. So we're setting that stage, right? We like to talk about agriculture. We can't just drop it and forget about it, right? We have to manage it. So we know we've talked that importance early on, right? Where that corn, we know we have to treat disease. We know we still want to mitigate stress because let's be honest, it's been wet here this spring, but in 2 weeks it could turn off dry.
Yeah, we've had, I mean, really, when you look at the last 3 years, the month of June has been extremely dry and extremely hot.
Yep.
So we've been blessed the last 3 years to get a rain around the 4th of July that was really a crop-saving rain.
Definitely.
And kept things going. But the fungicide applications that took place during that first couple weeks of June bought us time to get into that July rain.
Definitely. And Scott, let's stay with this early season. We think about mitigating stress, and I completely agree. We've got to take care of disease. These fungicides have great properties. Down here, though, we've also utilized some other products, right? This new class of PGRs with Architect.
Sure.
And why are you putting Architect on, and what time are you putting it on?
The Architect goes on the first pass post. We like to go early on it, that V3 to V6 application timing.
Yep.
Try to get as much on that leaf surface as we can.
Definitely.
Yes.
So now let's take us to the end of the season, right? That's where we all get excited. We have this big part in July where we're like, all right, we're tired, we're ready to go, let's see something. Take me now to the kind of that VT time frame, that R1 time frame in our corn, maybe that R5, R6 time frame in our soybeans. What does it look like there for managing crops and mitigating stress?
The main thing we want to do is keep the ear leaf, so the leaf right above the ear and above, healthy, clean. We want to make that corn plant feel as good as it possibly can. And so we're really talking about managing southern rust and tar spot at that point in time. So hopefully you've already gotten your full rate of fungicide on in that V8 time frame, V6 to V8, and then you're following it with another R1. The corn plant and the soybean plant as well. The soybean plant at R4 and the corn plant that once we go into reproductive stages on both of those, are going to be working as hard as they have in their life. And so it's important that we make that plant feel as good and robust as we possibly can and stop anything negative from happening. Because we're really about just stopping the negatives. It's not like we're going to increase yield at this point in time. Yet we're going to preserve it, hopefully maintain as many kernels as possible. On the soybean side of things, retain pods, pods and beans in the pod, retain flowers, make everything come to fruition at 100% of what it's capable of doing at that point in time.
Definitely, and it's about that idea of keeping the plant healthy, and we go back to it. We're like a broken record. We have to mitigate that stress and keep it green and growing. And so when we think about that stress, in corn, we can easily see it, right? It's tip back in corn.
Yep.
We see it every single year. In beans, it becomes scary because we can abort 50 to 80% of all the flowers and pods we ever put on a bean plant. So Scott, what are we doing then when we think about PGRs? What are some PGRs that we can be applying in that late season that are really going to help to mitigate stress, but then like Barry's been talking about, keep the plant green and keep it growing? What are some of those PGRs that we see?
Sure. We've got a product, like I said a while ago, a product called Onward Max, which is a late season PGR, not to be confused with the early season of Architect. This is put on with a fungicide or with an insecticide with that late season timing. This Onward Max is a low use rate of 6.4 ounces. It's basically a cost per acre is a little bit of, a couple bushel of corn, about 3 bushel of beans, something like that in that cost way. It has kynotin in it, chlorine chloride, kynotin, and GABA in it.
Yep.
So it has 3 major components. What we do is help reduce stress. We help add test weight.
Yep.
We help, as Barry was talking about, fill out that pod a little bit, reduce tip back on corn, help that cob go ahead and finish growing a little bit. Just kind of, it basically tells it we're not done growing yet. So it does multiple things, and it's again a low use rate.
And the thing I enjoy about talking about all of this is it's all backed by science, right? We've known about kynotin, choline chloride for years, right? We learned about it going through school, that kynotin enhances reproductive success, right? As we're looking at it. Choline chloride is great at maintaining photosynthesis. We've talked about choline chloride since the 80s, right? And then that new class, though, it's that GABA, which goes to stress mitigation and helping to mobilize.
Right.
But Barry, like we always talk about, if we want to ask the plant to do something, we have to pay it.
Yep.
And I think about it that way in terms of nutrients is how I'm paying my plant. Let's stay in that late season. What are some key nutrients that we need to be adding to corn and or soybeans to really help that plant finish out?
I think, from our farm at home and down here, I think boron is a key one at that stage.
Yep.
I think nitrogen on the corn side of things, it is really going to need a little extra shot of nitrogen if we can give it that at that point in time once the corn starts tasseling and from there on. So those would be the two key ones that I would look at.
I agree with you, right? That boron, I think, is becoming more key across the United States, especially as we drive our yield a little more. It's mobile in the soil profile, right? We know that our soil tests aren't always really good at predicting how much is there anyway, but it's easy to get in because we can mix it with PGRs like Scott was talking about. I can mix it with a fungicide like you've been talking about, and we're really kind of getting it across the board, setting it up for success.
Yep.
So Barry, as we kind of wrap this up, I'm going to put you on the spot. What are a couple of key things that we need to pay attention to as we're moving into this mid to late June timeframe?
I would look at what does the 2 to 3 week weather outlook. What's our forecast? I know weather people can't forecast, as good as or as well as we'd like them to, but you can see some trends. And what's the 10 to 15 day outlook? Are we going to get hot and dry? Then I would make an application of a fungicide, a PGR, and a nutritional just to help that corn or soybean plant feel like, hey, things are okay. It's not as bad as what it is outside, to keep it going and growing. I would probably leave the fungicide out on a soybean early application, but I would include a fungicide, a good fungicide on that early corn application. And then make sure you're paying attention to, from a corn standpoint, what is tar spot in the earlier planted areas? What's tar spot doing? Is anybody seeing anything? And then pay attention to what the southern rust outlook is coming up from the south, from Texas, because southern rust will blow in, and we can kind of track that pretty good about if the moisture's there and we've got decent temps. Once we get into that VT time frame, where's southern rust at in Oklahoma? Where's it at in Arkansas? Those places.
Watching it blow up and blow in, right?
Blow up. Yep.
Definitely. So it all boils down to keeping the plant green, driving photosynthesis, reducing stress, right? And it's kind of become my favorite saying, if we follow that solid agronomics, that's where the real economics come into play.
Yep.
We have to make sure that we're doing both if we're going to see the result in the end.
Absolutely.
Yep. Barry, I really appreciate
Thanks,
your time.
John. I appreciate it.
Scott, it's always been good.
Thank you.